The night she didn't come, the wind smelled like snow and old regrets. I remember the land first, open, patient, mean in its own quiet way. Sagebrush crouched low like old dogs. The cottonwoods along the creek held what leaves they had left, rattling like 10 prayers. Out there a man breathes and hears himself think, and sometimes that's the cruelest sound of all. They say a cowboy grows into his saddle. Maybe. I grew into silence, into the miles, into the notion that a man keeps what he can fix and lets the rest ride away. Trouble is, hearts ain't tack and rope. They tear where you can't mend 'em in daylight. I was older by then, weather on my face. Wyoming territory had rubbed its grit into me, the way snow works under collar and won't melt till spring. My left shoulder pulled when the cold set in, a little reminder from a bronc that hadn't wanted to be broke. Every winter, that ache spoke first. Then the memories answered back. I kept to a small fire that evening, south of Promise Creek. The cattle were bedded, bellies full with last of the good grass. The sky went iron. Coyotes tuned their sorrow from a wash beyond the cottonwoods. I poured coffee that tasted of smoke and iron kettle. Good enough, warm enough. I told myself I didn't need more. But a man tells himself many things when there's no one to argue. I've been to town for nails, lamp oil, a bolt of cloth Agnes at the boarding house had ordered, and a letter that wasn't for me. That's the way of post in a place like ours. Names cross and miss, like strangers at a depot. Still, I read the board out of habit, as if a scrap of paper might call my name back to some life I forgot to live. I saddled up later than sense allowed. Snow hung in the air. The bay shifted under me, breath steam white. We took the creek road, then the old freight trace, both quiet as a prayer no one says out loud. The moon was a thumbprint on a dirty window. I liked it that way, dim. The world ought to keep its secrets. That's when I saw the light from the depot. Not bright, not warm, just a tired lamp set in a circle of yellow on warped boards. The station sat alone on that bench of ground, a box of shadow and splinters. Most nights, it was dead as burying earth after sundown. Train only came by daylight, if it came at all. Folks didn't wait there after dark, except someone did. At first I thought coyote, a shape tucked small beside a stack of freight crates. The wind shifted, cloth flapped. Not coyote, not any kind of beast I knew. I rode closer, easy, talking low to the bay so my voice wouldn't come on like a shout. The lamp made a soft island. Inside it, a travel trunk sat like a coffin with handles. A figure leaned against it, bonnet tipped forward, coat thin as a lie. I swung down, boots on plank. The board spoke, an old depot's language, long and weary. She didn't stir. I could hear the slow scrape of her breath. Not drunk, not dead, just worn past the edges, the way winters wear a fence post, till it leans at the sky like a question. Ma'am, I kept it gentle. It's fallen cold. This ain't the place to keep the night. No answer. The bonnet lifted a finger's worth. Eyes found me from a long way off, like a deer still half in brush, gray-blue, uncertain, braver than they knew. She tried to rise. The trunk held her by the elbow. Train'll come, she said. Words chipped with the kind of hope a body bleeds to keep. He sent for me. Said to wait. I looked at the track. It looked back, black and empty, and going nowhere you can sleep. Snow began in earnest then, fine as sifted flour, mean as grit and bad teeth. Whoever he is, I said, he ain't coming tonight. I should have left it there. A man learns to let other folks play out their own rope. But there's a sound people make when the world quits them. I heard it once before, the day my father died, with a prayer in his throat that never found its end. I ain't forgot. The land remembers too. It sets that sound down in your bones and asks you what you aim to do about it. She shivered, not a dainty little thing. A full body quake, like the earth given under hooves. She caught herself, sat straighter. I'm Violet, she said, like a person introducing her courage. I'm to teach at Promise Creek. He wrote he'd meet me. Violet. The name didn't fit the color of the night. Still, it fit her somehow. A stubborn flower, looking for a crack of spring and planking snow. The right thing, pure and simple, was to fetch Agnes, or the pastor's wife, and let women handle women. The right thing, the quiet thing, the loner's thing, was to tip my hat, say God keep and ride till the lamp was just another star. I didn't. Caleb Irvine, I said, I've got a wagon not far. There's heat at the boarding house. Coffee that ain't boiled to death. We can stow your trunk, get you a bed. You can wait there for whoever's late. She studied me, same way a Mustang sees if the rope's coming. I don't need charity. Good, I said. I ain't offering any. I'm offering sense. Silence laid itself down between us. Snow stitched the edges. The lamp hummed. She looked past me at the open dark, then back to the trunk like it might turn into a promise if she stared hard enough. I told myself to step back, to leave her to her chosen faith in a train that wouldn't run till noon. But the cold found her hands. I saw the raw red of them when she reached for the trunk strap. Pride's a fine horse. It'll carry you across bad country, but it don't warm you at night. All right, she said, soft, not surrender. Agreement with the truth. I lifted the trunk, heavier than it looked, a life's worth, pressed into canvas and wood. She walked beside me, careful, head up, every inch the teacher she aimed to be. The snow took her tracks and made them mine, and I thought not for the first time, maybe a man isn't meant to live so far inside his own echo. Sometimes you don't choose the people you find in the dark. The dark chooses for you. If you've ever stood in the cold, waiting for someone who never came, you'll understand. She stayed in town after that night. Said she'd only planned to rest a spell, till her fiancé came back with an explanation. I didn't ask what kind. Promise Creek's the sort of place where folks got stories they don't tell till winter ends, and sometimes not even then. Agnes gave her the upstairs room with the window toward the river. I dropped her trunk there myself, tried not to notice how light she looked without it. Thought I'd just set it down and leave, but she thanked me, soft, like the word hadn't been used in a while. And damn if that didn't land somewhere deeper than I meant to feel. Next morning, the town woke slow. Frost rimmed the troughs. Church bell coughed once and quit. I took coffee on the porch while she stepped out in that blue coat, the one too thin for Wyoming air. She had a book under her arm and eyes that looked like they saw more than the street offered. "Morning, Miss Violet," I said, touching my hat. She nodded polite, chin high, and kept on walking, like a soldier facing her own kind of war. I watched her head toward the schoolhouse, a lopsided thing near the edge of town. Later that day, the wind carried her voice from there, reading lessons to kids who barely knew their letters. A clear, strong sound. Didn't break once, even when the boys tested her. I reckon that's when I knew she wasn't fragile. She was forged. Still folks talked. Promise Creek talks about everything that breathes. Some said she'd been left at that depot by a man run off with another. Some said she wasn't married proper, that her fiancé might never have existed. Others called her a fool for thinking she could teach wild children anything but how to survive. And me? I said nothing. Just mended fences, drove cattle, let the talk slide like sand off a boot. But I listened more than I should have. One afternoon, a gust came tearing down from the ridge, kicking dust through Main Street. She was out front of the store, trying to wrestle 2 sacks of flour onto a wagon that weren't hers. I swung down to help, more out of habit than gallantry. "Don't," she said breath sharp. "I can manage." I set my hands to my belt. Didn't say you couldn't. Just figured 2 hands make lighter work. Her eyes met mine, blue, cold, daring me to argue. Then she nodded once. We hefted the sack together, tied it down. "Thank you, Mr. Irvine," she said, but her tone added, "Don't make this a habit." I smiled. Couldn't help it. Wouldn't dream of it. That was the first of our arguments, the quiet kind that ain't about the words you say. The next came at the livery, when she came to borrow a mule for hauling wood. Said she didn't need a man's horse, didn't need a man's help. I told her a mule would fight her for it, but she went anyway. Came back with frostbit fingers and pride still intact. I didn't laugh. I wanted to. Lord, I wanted to. But she looked at me like laughter was a kind of wound she didn't want reopened. Instead, I fixed her stove that night. Said the draft was bad. Truth was, I needed something to do that didn't feel like wanting her. She stood by the table, arms folded, light from the fire softening the edge of her stubborn. "You think you can fix everything, don't you?" I shrugged. Not everything. Just what breaks in front of me." Silence again. Then she said quieter, "What if it's a person that's broke?" I met her eyes. "Then you let 'em tell you where it hurts." That stopped her. For the first time, she didn't have a reply. Just turned away, slow, and said she had lessons to plan. I left before she could see the smile I couldn't hide. That winter, the snow came early. The school board near cut her pay. Said women shouldn't work when roads were bad. She stood in that meeting, chin high, arguing that kids needed learning more than men needed excuses. I sat in the back, didn't say a word, but my hands were balled up tight enough to ache. When she walked out, she passed me without looking. But later that week, I found a note on my porch, folded neat. "Thank you for being there, even when you say nothing. No name. Didn't need one." Sometimes I'd ride by the schoolhouse at dusk just to see the lamplight in the window. The sound of her voice reading to herself carried farther than any prayer. Then came the blizzard. I still hear it in my sleep. The scream of the wind through split boards. The way the snow erased the world inch by inch. I went out to check the cattle pens and saw the schoolhouse lamp still burning. She was in there, keeping it lit for children that had long gone home. I kicked the door open. "You plan on freezing for a lesson," I barked. She turned, startled, hair unpinned, cheeks raw from cold. I said I'd finish the ledgers. "Not if the roof caves first," I said. "You're coming with me." "I'm not a child, Mr. Irvine." "No," I said, "you're a teacher with more heart than sense." She started to protest, but the wind drowned her. I grabbed her coat, and she let me. Sometimes even the strongest soul knows when to lean on another. By the time we reached the ranch, snow had filled our tracks. The fire roared, but she was still shivering. I handed her coffee. She took it, both hands trembling. "You always this bossy?" she asked, voice faint but teasing. "Only when someone's too stubborn to stay alive." She laughed then. First time I'd heard it. Sounded like spring trying to remember itself. That night, we didn't talk much, just sat by the fire, listening to the roof groan and the storm drag its claws across the hills. I watched the glow dance on her face and thought, maybe some storms bring you home, whether you want it or not. If you've ever found warmth where you least expected it, you'll understand. Morning came pale and quiet. The storm had blown itself empty, leaving drifts high as a man's chest and a sky scrubbed clean. The world looked innocent, but I learned long ago. Snow heights, what it means to kill. She stood at the window, cup in her hands, hair loose, like sunlight trying to remember its way back. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "Oh, it looks that way," I said, "till you step in it." She smiled, just barely. We shared coffee in silence, each listening to the fire pop like small truths we couldn't say. I knew that kind of morning, when everything feels fragile, like when word might break what peace you found. I saddled up after noon, cut paths to the barn, cleared the pens. She came out, boots sinking in the snow, cheeks pink. "You didn't have to," she said. I looked at her, meaning more than I should. I reckon I did. That night, the town started talking again. A woman staying at a cowboy's place through a storm. It don't take much for gossip to sprout in frozen ground. I heard the laughter at the saloon, the whisper at the general store. Promise Creek always needed a story, and now it had one. When she heard, she came to me, jaw set. "You let 'em say that?" "Let 'em," I said. "Well, I can't stop breathing in the wind, ma'am. Can't stop talking either." She glared. "I've worked too hard to be someone's rumor." "I know," I said, quiet. "That's why I keep my mouth shut and my hands busy." But she turned, coat flaring, and left. I watched her walk down that frozen street, small against the white, like someone fighting a whole world that wouldn't listen. That's when her letter came. Not mine to open, but it might as well have been. Agnes handed it to me when she found me fixing the corral fence. "It's from Philadelphia," she said. "You best get it to her." I carried it up the hill, found Violet at the schoolhouse. Chalk dust on her hands. She looked tired, like she'd been great in the whole world. "It's from your pa," I said. She took it, stared at the seal, and for a long moment didn't move. Then she smiled, that kind of smile that ain't joy, just armor. "Thank you, Mr. Irvine." I should have left. I didn't. I stood there like a fool while she opened it. The words hit her one by one, each like a nail. "He says," she whispered, voice shaking. "He says I've shamed the family, that a woman alone in a frontier town is no better than—" She stopped, swallowed. "He says I'm to come home before winter ends, or not come home at all." The paper shook in her hand. I reached for it, but she pulled back. "Don't," she said. "Violet." "No," she cut me off. "You don't get to pity me. You think because you saved me once, you can fix this too." "I ain't fixing nothing," I said. "Just don't want you hurt." "Well, I already am." She turned away, shoulders stiff. That's how pride looks when it's holding itself together. That night, she didn't come to supper at the boarding house. Didn't light her school lamp either. The town felt emptier, even with all its noise. Days passed. Then came the church social. I hadn't planned on going, but Agnes said, "You owe it to yourself to stop staring at cattle and talk to folks who ain't cows." So I went. The hall smelled of pie and polish, laughter sticky as molasses. Violet was there standing near the stove, wearing a dress the color of smoke. Pretty didn't begin to cover it. Strong did. I thought maybe I'd walk over. Maybe say what I hadn't said. Something about how she made this town feel like spring in January. But before I could move, I heard Sarah Green whisper behind her fan, loud enough for everyone. Some teachers find lessons in every house, even a cowboy's bed. The laughter that followed cut sharp. Violet's face went white. She turned, eyes meeting mine across the room. I stepped forward, but she shook her head, slow, proud. Then she walked out. I went after her anyway. Found her outside near the hitching rail, tears freezing before they could fall. "Don't," she said when she heard my boots crunch the snow. "Don't say you're sorry." I wasn't gonna. I said, "I'm sorry for accidents. This ain't one." She turned, hurt flaring like firelight. "Then what is it?" "Truth," I said. "I care, and I don't much mind who knows it." She stared at me a long moment, chest rising, falling, like she was trying to breathe through all the wrong years at once. Then she said, "I can't be anyone's scandal, Caleb. Not yours. Not theirs. I came here to teach, not to belong." She walked away, boots striking hard, and this time I let her go. Snow started again that night. I sat outside the barn, pipe cold between my fingers, staring at the empty road to the depot. Sometimes, when a man finally speaks the truth, it comes too late to be heard. If you've ever held back just one word too long, you'll understand. Winter stretched long after that night. The wind had teeth, and the land bit deep. Violet stayed at the schoolhouse, mostly, buried in lessons, lantern light, glowing like a ghost through frosted glass. I passed sometimes, just to see that glow. A fool's habit, maybe. But a man needs proof. The world still holds something worth awaiting. Word spread. She meant to leave once the roads thawed. Head east again. Some said she'd already sent for a ticket. I didn't ask her, didn't dare. But every dawn I'd watch the smoke rise from her chimney and think, not yet. Don't let her go just yet. The cattle wintered rough. I kept busy, mending rails, chopping ice, fixing what I could, ignoring what I couldn't. The land keeps a man honest that way. But there was an ache under all that noise. Not the kind you cure with whiskey or work. The kind that whispers a name into every chore, till the day feels smaller without it. Then one afternoon, Agnes rode out through the snow, skirts and all, cheeks red from the cold. "She's packing," she said before I could speak. "Violet's leaving. Today." I didn't think. Just saddled the bay and rode. Promise Creek looked like the edge of heaven under all that white. I cut through Maine, past the blacksmith's, past the store, till I saw her trunk outside the depot again, same one I'd carried months before. History's got a cruel sense of humor. She stood there, coat buttoned to the chin, bonnet low. The train whistle echoed somewhere down the line, though we both knew it wouldn't reach this far till morning. "You ain't got to do this," I said, breath clouding the air between us. She didn't turn. "It's already done." I swung down, boots hitting hard. "You think running'll mend what's broke? I think staying'll break what's left." Her voice cracked just enough to ruin the lie. I stepped closer, slow, till I saw the tears she refused to wipe. You can't let them win, Violet. Not the talk. Not your father's pride. Not this damn town. She looked up at me then, eyes sharp as sleet. You think it's about them? You think it's about fear? It's about me, Caleb. I came here to stand on my own 2 feet, but every time you walk into a room, people see a woman being saved. I shook my head. No, ma'am. They see a man lucky enough to stand near you. That silenced her. The wind filled the gap, tugging at her coat, at my hat brim. We just stared. 2 stubborn souls frozen in the middle of too much truth. I can't be your burden, she whispered, and I can't be your ghost. I said, so maybe what we got left is choice. She frowned. Choice? Yeah, I said, I'll choose you with your pride, your school, your rules. You choose whether that's worth staying for. The depot clock ticked once, and then again. Somewhere far off, a hawk cried. The whole world seemed to wait for her answer. Finally, she sighed. You don't know what you're asking. I do, I said. I'm asking to build something that don't need fixing. To stand beside you, not in front. Her eyes softened, like dawn finding a canyon. And if I say no, then I'll keep riding, I said. But I'll leave the lamp burning in case you change your mind. That did it. She smiled then, a slow, tired, beautiful thing that felt like home. Next morning, she showed up at the ranch with a box of books and a letter for the school board. She'd written new bylaws. No woman would lose her post for marrying. I signed it first, though my name didn't mean much. Hers did. We married under the cottonwoods come spring. No preacher's sermon, just Agnes humming some hymn and the bass stomping in the grass. She wore the same blue coat from that first day, said it reminded her how far a person can travel on faith and a good horse. When the papers called her Mrs. Irvine, she just laughed. Still Violet, she told them, still the teacher. And I loved her more for it. Some nights, we'd sit on the porch, her reading by a lantern light, me listening to the sound of her voice mixed with crickets and wind. Peace don't come easy to men like me, but she brought it anyway, piece by piece. That summer, she hung a sign outside the school, Promise Creek Academy, learning for all. She taught ranch hands their letters, miners their sums, and children how to dream bigger than dust. One evening, I watched her from the hill, sunlight in her hair, laughter chasing off the wind. I thought of that first night at the depot, how I'd found her alone, shivering, waiting for someone who never came. And I thanked the Lord he hadn't. If you've ever found what you were looking for, only after losing your way, you'll understand. Years pass slow out here, the way wind wears a canyon, patient, certain, without apology. I've seen more winters than I can count, each one carving a little deeper, each one leaving me quieter. The ranch still stands, the cottonwoods still lean like old men swapping lies. And every spring, the school bell rings clear across the valley, just like it did the day she opened those doors. She's gone now. Cancer, the doctor said, like that was a word that could hold all the years between her laughter and the silence she left behind. But I still hear her sometimes, in the hush before dawn, in the crackle of fire, in the pages of a book she marked and left on the shelf beside my chair. I sit by that fire most nights, the same chair, the same view down the long road that leads past the depot. It's empty now, just a shell of wood and rust. But I remember it how it was. The yellow lamp, the snow falling soft, her face turned toward me for the first time. Funny thing about memories. You can't touch 'em, but they hold you tighter than any rope. Folks in town ask if I ever think about leaving. I tell 'em no. The land's got roots in me. So does she. Violet's school still stands, though it's bigger now, painted white, run by the same girls she once taught. Sometimes they come by with pie, or just to check if I'm still breathing. I reckon I am. I read their letters by lamplight. Young women are writing from Cheyenne, Denver, even as far as Boston, teachers, doctors, dreamers, all of them saying the same thing. She made me believe I could. I fold those letters careful, like prayer notes, and set them under her photograph. I remember her voice, clear and firm. A woman's mind ain't something to be hidden, Caleb. It's something to build a world on. And maybe that's what we did. Her and me. Build a small world worth living in, even if it was just this one valley. Come spring, the river breaks its ice again. Caves stumble on shaky legs. Birds return, same songs, same dust. I patch the fence like always, though I don't ride far these days. The saddle feels heavier. The silence feels kind. Maybe that's what peace really is. Silence that don't scare you anymore. Sometimes, when the sun drops low, I walk out to the edge of the ridge. From there you can see the whole town, the bell tower, the steeple, the faint curl of chimney smoke from the school. I take off my hat, let the wind through my hair, and say her name once, just once. It hangs there in the air, soft as the day she said all right at that depot. The road's empty, but I swear, when the dust comes right, I still see her shadow on it, bonnet tilted, coat blue as twilight, walking toward me with that proud little smile. And maybe that's enough. Maybe she never really left. A man don't get to keep much in this life, but if he's lucky, he gets one love that don't fade, one memory that warms him even when the fire burns low. I reckon that's more mercy than I ever deserved. So I pour one last cup of coffee, same tin pot, same cracked mug, and I lift it to the quiet. To you, Violet, I whisper, to the night you waited and the fool who finally showed up. The wind carries it somewhere east, where the rails still shine in morning light. And I reckon that's her answer, soft, steady, endless. If you've ever loved someone long enough for silence to speak louder than words, you'll understand. And maybe love ain't about holding on. It's about learning to let go gentle.